They can't communicate to then their executives, their stakeholders, the why. Why are they building this roadmap? Why are they building this feature? And so great ideas just never get built.
Why is it that we can do everything by the book and still not be able to work well with other parts of the business? Whether it's connecting metrics to money, translating product to profit, or missing key things like seasonality.
We're just speaking a different language. We're speaking user. Executives are trying to really work on the business. How do you move the business forward? What are the bets that the business needs to make to move it forward?
Hey, it's The Product Experience, and I'm Randy Silver. Elena Luneva has the answer. And it's not what you do, but how you talk about it. She's seen the mistakes we keep making, and as a CPO and Maven partner, she's got practical advice on how to get past them.
The pieces were there, but they weren't packaged or they weren't translated in a way that executives would pay attention to.
Elena, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here in Cleveland. How are you enjoying the conference?
Oh, Randy, thank you for welcoming me. I'm really enjoying industry and just meeting all the product folks from around the globe.
So you did a fantastic talk on the stage earlier, and we really enjoyed it. We wanted to dig a little bit deeper into it, but for anyone who's not lucky enough to be here in Cleveland and didn't see you or doesn't know you already, just give us a little bit of introduction. What are you doing these days, and how did you get into product in the first place?
It's a long story. So I've been in product for over 20 years. I started my career as a product manager at BlackRock, now the largest asset management company. And I've worked with different companies, OpenTable, Nextdoor, LiquidSpace, Nuna, the last 10 years in executive positions, so VP, GM, CPO. Mm-hmm. And most recently, I've been working on AI software. So whether that's interviewing with an AI avatar or doing the matching between candidates and recruiters. And now I'm trying to expand that to working with different companies, primarily AI, so that we can get the product foundation in place, make sure that they have the right teams so that they can execute on that strategy. AI companies are moving super fast, so they need to constantly figure out which functions to keep, which ones to AI can do. So I'm working with a couple right now to do that. And then I'm also working with product managers who are looking to accelerate their careers, get into that executive suite. I teach a course called Develop CPO Level Skills, where we cover go-to-market strategy, financial acumen, some of the things we'll talk through today, in addition to executive presence and influence. Like, how do you communicate those strategies, those products that you're building so that they get invested in and that you can move them forward?
Fantastic. Yeah, it's these soft skills, these product adjacent skills that can be the hardest things to do, because we spend all our time focusing on internal, how do we do our bit, but then how do we align and work with everybody else? It gets overlooked way too often.
It does. And especially as an operator, a really great product manager, you're so good at the user needs, translating that to developers, to designers, really building great products. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed with my team, with people I coach, is they have that ceiling where they can't communicate to then their executives, their stakeholders, the why. Why are they building this roadmap? Why are they building this feature? And so great ideas just never get built.
So let's go dig into why. Why is this so hard? I mean, it's obvious, right? We've done the business model canvas. We've done this and that. We've done ticked all the boxes that say this is the right thing to do. We've gone through prioritization. Why is it not intuitively obvious to everyone else that this is the thing to do?
Absolutely. I think we're just speaking a different language. We're speaking user. We're speaking, Randy has a specific problem and I'm trying to solve that problem for Randy. But then executives are trying to really work on the business. How do you move the business forward? What are the bets that the business needs to make to move it forward? And so they're just thinking about things in a different way. The second piece is you're usually working on a piece of the business. For example, you're making the conversion funnel better, or you're making engagement better. But that's a piece of how the business runs. And so you're talking in a language that frequently isn't understood. The second piece I would say is the numbers piece, and we'll talk about that today, is the translation of how do you translate user value that Randy's going to find the plumber for his house faster to, well, now, because we're a business that makes money from the plumber bookings, this is how it ladders back to the business and how the functionality that we put out there will move the business forward.
Let's bring this one to life. In your talk yesterday, you did a really good case study. You talked about a feature that seems like it's incredibly obvious. It was definitely the right thing to do, but it was something you're doing at Nextdoor, and it was hard to get over the line and hard to convince people to invest in it. Let's go through story. It's maps. Maps in a local app, a local neighborhood-based app, seems like table stakes.
Right?
Why
yeah,
was
that's
it so
what
hard?
it felt. That's what it felt like to me. I was the general manager at Nextdoor, so my responsibility was how do I get local businesses onto Nextdoor? And the other, educational part of this is when somebody's using your app in a way that you didn't build it for. So when I joined, local businesses were trying to connect with neighbors. They were trying to post about their bakery. But that was taken down because it felt like it was against moderation guidelines, that they were self-promoting. But there were thousands of them trying to do this. So an aha moment was, hey, if somebody's trying to abuse your product and you can find a way for them to complement the connections that are happening, there's probably something in that for your business. And that's what we did. We added hundreds of thousands of the plumbers, the roofers, the bakeries into Nextdoor. And one of the pieces of feedback I got from them is, hey, neighbors tend to follow a specific path. Like, I don't know, you have kids, I have kids, you take them to school, you go to work, and then you have your specific route. Maybe you pick up a coffee on the way. But you never learn that there's another bakery that you probably potentially like better a block away. It's not a part of your discovery path. So that was one aha moment for me. And it was something that I'd try to let other executives know. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. And I'd get kind of that head nod. The other piece is what you said, the obvious of it's a local app, and yet we were using a feed. It made sense at the time. Facebook was using a feed, Snapchat was using a feed. So it was the way that social networks were built. But what we also saw is there would sometimes be negativity, or people would be scrolling through and it wouldn't get you to that connection. So I was like, hey, let me do some experiments and see if when we put a map inside the application, like, will people engage better? And we did find that. We found 3x engagement with people leveraging maps.
That seems like a really easy metric to understand.
Right? So I brought that up. So I was trying to do the product management way of users like it, users engage. This is good for us. This is good for our brand. This is good for our community. And people were interested. People were listening, but not enough to make it a priority. So yeah, I felt like I kept being like, why is nobody hearing me? And kept going through those motions until, and frankly, seeing other product managers around me also with ideas I thought were good, doing the same. And then I started talking to the partnerships team and showing some of these prototypes. And they're like, well, if you're thinking about like a seasonal map, like a map where trick-or-treaters in the neighborhood could go find houses that were giving out treats, so it would make it easy for parents to do. And I think there's a there, but if we get one of our brands like Recess to sponsor it, or can you mock up a way that we can do that? And so we did with a designer, and they're like, well, we can get Recess to pay like millions of dollars for this. All right, there's a there. And then I talked to our head of revenue and converted the engagement numbers to, hey, if these people stay and they engage more, then there's a knock-on effects on our advertising revenue, and this is how it translates. And immediately there was okay, go talk to this person. Let's see how we can prioritize it for this next quarter. And then I was like, well, I'm saying the same thing. It's just I'm now adding those financial metrics, and I'm getting layers of revenue that this could generate for the company. And now people are listening.
So you're speaking their language specifically.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting, but the 3x engagement, that's for us, what you did to put a map on is the output, the 3x engagement is the outcome. For them, that's the output. And they're looking for the outcome or to say output to outcome to impact, and the impact is on the revenue. But you just hadn't spelled that out initially.
Exactly. So it was the pieces were there, but they weren't packaged or they weren't translated in a way that executives would pay attention to.
So what did that lead to? This was a one-off product, a feature development.
Right.
You rolled it out. It was successful. You made a bunch of money, and people were very happy. The next time you had an idea, did you approach it the same way, or did you start with thinking about the impact and discussing it with the peers around the company?
Yeah, so with that, I was like, well, all right, so there's a difference in, there's a need to translate, there's a need to speak effectively executive, and I teach that now in my course. One part is executive presence, the other piece is the finance piece. So anytime I'd have my team or myself think through what is that next piece that we do, I'd start with what is this feature? How does it fit into our product strategy? But then also translate to what are the revenue impacts? And then combine that with things like scenario planning. It's like, okay, if the best case scenario happens, this is probably the projections. But then if something different happens, then here's the downside of our scenarios. And that helped me a lot, again, at Nextdoor when coronavirus hit. And so as the general manager, we had a revenue projection for the local business line based on the portfolio of product work that we would do. And then 50% of local businesses shut down. And so we had to throw that plan out the window and really start with that bottom scenario of, okay, if a bunch of them shut down, how do we now pivot our product strategy, and how do we think about the go-to-market and the products that we have as a portfolio to figure out where do we go from here. And so we went from a product that was extractive, that really got people to resubscribe into subscription type models within the product, to how do we get money into local business pockets right away. And so we moved the whole product strategy to gift cards, to delivery, to a way to move revenue to them right away. And so the way that we also went to market, we had to move from, boots on the ground, sales team, to really telling those positive stories. And so the whole system and how that, both our projections, the product suite, how we positioned it in the market, and our business model had to change. So as a general manager, I had to go to the board and explain that, like, hey, I gave you this number before. We're gonna
Circumstances have changed.
We're gonna
you may have
put
noticed
that away. Exactly. We're in a completely different scenario right now. We don't know what will happen in the market. We were following China. Here's some of the businesses that came back. It's the ones outside of the home, like your gardeners. And here's what we propose to do from a product perspective. We're going to go to a package that gets them money now. And here's how our business model changes. We'll go from subscriptions to percentages of partner revenue. And this is how our go-to-market changes. So then it helps a product leader really think beyond not only what is the best case and what are we solving for our users, which was still very necessary. We needed to help our local businesses. But then it helps you paint that picture and get your executive team, your board aligned with your new direction as well.
So you just talked about, this is something you were doing at the general manager level. It's something that should probably be expected for most product leaders at a certain point. But what's the level of fluency that's needed if you're more junior? You're still talking, your span of control is a lot more limited. You might be thinking about this stuff, but you might not have access to all the information. What's the right level of fluency or competency that you need at, let's say, a mid-career or junior level?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think as you start out in your product career, the product foundation of being user-centric, curious, data-driven, work really great with design, with engineering, with AI these days. are the foundational one. I do chalk up the data-driven piece. There is what are the metrics for my product? What do I see after I launch my product? There needs to be an understanding of what is the business model for the business I'm operating in. So Nextdoor, as an example, was an ads-driven business. So that means if you do something to the feed that gets people to stay, you usually impact ads revenue in a positive way. So as a mid-career product manager, just understanding those effects, I think, is foundational and something that you should know. And as you progress through your career, that like systems thinking of, if I change this part of the funnel, this is how it impacts the rest of the stack, and kind of the knock-on effects around other parts of the platform.
How do you help your team of product people and then the people they're working with, the designers, the devs, everybody else, to really understand this and internalize it? It's, you know, like I said, it's a different language. It's not something they have a direct span of control or impact on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Do you use maps and, you know, I would do like a service design map to show how a business actually works from a customer interaction point of view. Would you do that to say, this is how the money flows?
That is one of the tools. We frequently use user journeys, which are very prevalent. It's something that people understand. But what I like to do as a leader is provide that business context and really make sure that the R&D teams know the why behind why we're doing this and know the financial aspects of the why. So they know the end-to-end journeys, like how does a business work through Nextdoor, but then also what does that mean for the company? What are the KPIs for the company that we're trying to move with the changes that we're making? So then when people are making decisions around what to build, how to build it, how to connect those things to other parts of the product, they have that context. And I think that what that really helps with is, instead of going from like shipping the org where, you know, I'm responsible for this window, I'm responsible for that other window, I like to align teams more in a GM structure where you have your marketing sales team working with your product team on a specific outcome. And that gives the product team that context, that metric that's out facing, and they're responsible for the how. It might be a feature, it might be an optimization, it might be a bet on a new technology.
And there's two sides of it. We were talking about revenue, but there's also costs.
Yes.
That come in, and it's a lot of companies can be cagey about this. You don't, especially we're talking about AI and things. You know, cost of compute, cost of tokens can be high, cost of third-party vendor services can be quite high, but you feel like you need them to do some of this development a lot of the time.
Yeah.
What level of expectation do you have for people? So at GM level, it's one thing, but what level of expectation do you have for people in the team to really start to understand and manage the costs? You know, we've, at least in Europe, we've been fighting the battle to be closer to P&L and have that, but it's kind of jealously guarded in other parts of the business sometimes.
No, absolutely. So my expectation for the team is to answer 4 questions, and these are basic, but frequently people have a hard time answering. So what is it? Why does it matter? How much is it going to cost me? And when do I get it? And that helps people to be like, oh, well,
but none of
this
that
was a great idea.
It's the why does it matter is how much money am I going to make is from this.
That
part,
could be
part
one
of it.
Them. Yeah. And then the how much does it cost me gets into like, do I need to hire someone? Is there cloud? Is there compute cost behind this? How much is it going to take me? Also, it gets us into the conversation of, you know, with AI enablement, perhaps we can get there faster. With a headcount, it'll take us 3 months to hire someone and plus another 3 months to get there. And then the why does it matter? There's the financial component, but then it also gets the team to think systematically. Like if I add this, what is the knock-on effect to, let's say, engagement in another part? What is the knock-on effect? Can we take out a different feature? Does it hang together with the rest of the system? And so that helps the team ask those types of questions internally. And then us as a team think through what is our portfolio of investments and what are those outcomes ladder up to.
So there's the basic level of doing this, of saying, it costs this much, it'll make this much, therefore we can prioritize and you can do some rice scoring or something like that. There's next levels to this stuff. Sure. Then you get cost to delay. What is the impact of us not doing this? Opportunity cost. And then you can play around with, well, it's kind of revenue neutral, but changes CapEx versus OPEX, or it does things in EBITDA and all these things like that are, I mean, we have lots of weird acronyms and thought patterns in product world and in dev world, but finance it's a whole different game of doing this. So, how do you understand which game it is that you're playing, or what are the things that that the finance team or that the management team are going to care about, and what your potential levers or opportunities are?
Yeah, so I try to keep it pretty like paper napkin level at the decision level because at that point depending on how far a horizon of an outcome is, everything is 10x, everything takes 6 months, everything takes a year. And we joked about this yesterday. The exercise really is to get people to think and to have those questions answered so that when we're making trade-offs, when we're having the conversations, we've done enough research around both the opportunity costs, the trade-off costs, and what are the bets we're making as a company. And so the way I like to think about things farther in the future is much more in horizons, like something like AI, everyone's talking about it. If we do this for the right reasons, what TAM is that going to open up for the company? What is it going to open up for us that we can't do with what we're doing right now? And then this other pieces are things like congruency. If we do that, do we have the go-to-market strategy for it? Is it like a share of wallet expansion? So really thinking about that system for the company. And then when I bring it down to my team and the individuals working through each of the components, we have those types of conversations so that we can make the trade-off decisions and ask the questions. But yeah, to your point, the fidelity doesn't need to be very well thought through. It's a combination of here's the outcomes I'm driving, here's the resources I need, this is how it fits into the system, this is potentially how it'll change where we're going, and here's some more questions around just scenarios and what if all of the things I'm looking to do are going to take longer or won't give us the outcomes that we need, and then we can have those types of debates at that level.
I like that word debates because I think one of the key things I'm taking from this is some people think they might have to walk into that room with the CFO and whoever else with the answer. And it's really not about that. It's about, here's an interesting thing that we're thinking of. We're presenting it in a way that we'd like to start the discussion and giving you the information. And then you can feedback and we can adjust based on, if you say, ooh, what we need is this. One of the traps I've seen a lot of people fail at is, they start off at a company, especially in the free money era, it was, well, we'll get big fast and we'll figure out revenue later. And they don't know how to adjust when all of a sudden the company's like, no, actually, we need revenue now. And they don't know how to use those levers at all.
Exactly. And so that's the question. You're having a discussion. You're trying to get more information than you had before so you can make an educated guess in that point of time. And then when you're delivering the work, how do you break it down in a way that you can get smarter a month later, you can get even smarter 2 months later, and adjust what you're doing?
Okay, so there's one really scary part of this, which is, there's lots of scary parts, but one thing that comes is, we are already tentative about putting dates on roadmaps. Now we're walking in with revenue targets as well. And there's a limited amount of influence that we have. We can deliver everything right. And do what we do, follow the plan and execute what we said, but the world may change, or sales it may have a bad quarter for some reason, or a competitor does something else. So now it's not only did we ship it when we said we were going to, is did we realize the promise of this? How accurate, how confident do we need to be without being hung out to dry, I guess?
Yeah, that's a big question, and one where I think the direction product management is going is really in two directions. One, you see that CPTO role emerge, so really R&D getting together, the CEO wanting one person to talk to for all delivery. The other direction I see product going is more in the CPMO role. So how do you get R&D and go-to-market more closer together so that we start getting held accountable to outcomes rather than, hey, we shipped everything perfectly on the timeline we said, and clearly the go-to-market function is the one that messed up. And so when I work with teams, I try to, for every initiative, really align the go-to-market and the product things that we can do to the outcomes. Because that's the missing piece for outcomes. If we're saying we're going to generate this much revenue, you're absolutely right. The product needs to ship, marketing needs to do all the right things, sales needs to do all the right things. And if one of those is not aligned, it doesn't matter that we shipped a great product, or it doesn't matter that we sold a great product if the product isn't there.
Right.
So in thinking through, helping teams think through the financial outcomes, the company outcomes, we then align to a much better spot, because then bottoms up, we can have those conversations of like, hey, I can ship you this thing 6 months from now. Is the sales team ready to talk about this? Oh, no, they're not, because they're on this other, they're selling the core product. Okay, then we need to adjust how we think about this. Oh, this is a future bet. We're going to test it out. We're going to have a customer advisory board. We're going to get signal. Got it. That's a very different outcome. And then it becomes much more of a team sport. You have a lot more of those answers up front. And when you land to that 6 months from now, it's less of a stabbing people in the back. It's much more of like, yes, this is what we knew, and this is where we are today.
And of course, it should always be a collaborative, team-based thing, but we know the reality of.
But then there's reality, exactly.
Just one side question. You mentioned a CPMO, and I haven't come across any of them yet. I'm just curious, is that more about product marketing and not brand marketing, or is it encompass both in where you've seen it?
It encompasses both. I see less of them than CPTO. I recently wrote an article, The Future of Product Management. And so an example that I had was Lego. They had a CPMO that combined the practices of how do we create the right products for kids, for adults, but also how do we take them to market. And there's more CPG brands that do that now. But I do see things like AI products where there is a race to market right now. You can build anything right now. And that big opportunity is, how do you position? How do you price? How do you get to your users and get there quickly? And so in this era, we can build anything yesterday, like that positioning, that go-to-market becomes so critical.
That makes sense. Okay, let's go back to the core subject. One of the things I really enjoyed about your talk was an article that you wrote about this is you have some very practical advice about the common mistakes that people make on this. So can you run through a couple of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So frequently as product managers, we use DAU, daily active users, monthly active users. So instead, talk about like ARPU DAU, what is the revenue per user? When you talk about things like I'm going to focus on the quality initiatives, or I'm going to reduce the number of tickets that customer success is going to need to make. So this is like internal product teams. Instead, talk about opex, talk about the cost savings that you're making for the company. I talked to someone last night who was in a non-for-profit. And the feedback is, hey, you still need to make money and reinvest it in the business. And so when you're talking about the initiatives and the impact, still connected to that revenue impact that you're going to make for yourself or the companies that you're working with.
Yeah, I worked for a supermarket chain for a while. And, it's a very low margin business.
Yeah.
And anytime you wanted investment in anything, the question that came back was, if you can figure out how many tins of beans we're going to need to sell to finance this. I mean, it's a bit facetious, obviously, but that was the DNA of the organization, was we need to scrimp and save on every single penny.
Exactly.
And how are we going to make this work? What's the really you have to justify?
And connected to the cans of beans at OpenTable, we charged restaurants on a monthly basis. And so it was disconnected from when people would show up. And so one of the features we delivered was mobile payments, so that we can connect when we charge restaurants to the time of the transaction to smooth it out and have it connected with when they actually get value.
Going back to the maps example at Nextdoor, What about seasonality? You said you tied this into Halloween at first.
Yeah. Yeah, so with maps, we had several seasonal maps, like the Halloween map. Another one was around lights decoration around the holiday time. And so with that product, with other ones, it's so critical when you're testing to understand seasonality. So an example I have is we launched a deals product for local businesses. And we test, so this is like, hey, you get a free coffee if you buy a coffee type of coupon, but a digital version of these. And we tested it in the fall in 3 markets. And one of those markets was Chicago. And it's cold in Chicago. And so that market didn't have the same deals adoption. We were, scratching our heads for a second there. And then we're like, oh, yeah,
It's cold.
it's cold. So picking those test markets, especially for digital to physical products, when you're validating your hypothesis is really important, or even thinking through knock-on effects of if you turn off a channel, a growth channel, that if you don't get the top of the funnel filled in a specific season before your strong season, you're going to have a much weaker performance that entire year.
Another thing that's come up a lot of times is people double counting things because we're launching this new thing. Yeah. It's going to make this, but forgetting that it means that people may not be using the old thing as much.
Yes, we had that same set of discussions with the board because for local businesses, we went from just real estate agents having a specific set of products to plumbers and bakeries and roofers having a portfolio of products that they could use. And so the conversations we had was like, well, this could cannibalize our biggest revenue source, which are real estate agents. And so we had to model through, subscriptions, deals, the packages we'd put together. And here's the potential cannibalization effect. And by the way, if we still added these layers of revenue, it would be significantly larger. So we walked into those conversations knowing that there would be cannibalization, and we had to have that. Are we sure about this conversation? But we had that data, and that we could walk our CRO through, and our, I think, 4 or 5 finance people in the room being very worried about the things that we were about to launch.
Elena, this has been a fantastic chat. I've really enjoyed this. One last question I think we've got time for. What's one practical thing that I can do or our listeners can do tomorrow to get started in becoming better and more fluent and working better with the finance teams?
Yeah, I think a first one is at the all hands. The finance team always presents the financials. And you're probably, well, maybe it was just me scrolling through your phone and checking up on all the Slacks that you need to make. Pay attention to that. See if you can have a conversation with a financial analyst and get into the numbers and just absorb 10% more of what in the world they're all talking about, instead of being like, oh, I will at some point. The second piece is think about the words that you're using. So are you talking about engagement? Can you translate that to what is the revenue per user? Are you trying to defend your roadmap, or instead of defending your roadmap, say, here's the investments that we're making in the future of the business and here's the outcomes we're going to get? And if you don't have those numbers, well, that's a question for you to start asking.
Fantastic. So, yeah, of course, and I forgot to mention, people can, of course, take your course. They can subscribe to your Substack. One thing I like to tell people that I coach is you have the skill set to do this because this is discovery.
Yeah.
It's simply going to people and asking them, what do you need to make a better decision? What's the language you use? Help me understand it a little bit better. They generally want you to help them.
Exactly. That's really good advice. If you talk in the language that people want to absorb information, they're much more likely to do that.
Elena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Randy. Happy to be here.
The Product Experience hosts are me, Lily Smith, host by night and Chief Product Officer by day.
And me, Randy Silver, also host by night. And I spend my days working with product and leadership teams, helping their teams to do amazing work.
Luran Pratt is our producer, and Luke Smith is our editor.
And our theme music is from product community legend Arnie Kittler's band, POW. Thanks to them for letting us use their track.